Captain America Civil War. That's coming out real soon,
That's right.
and everyone's pretty hype about it. And we're getting our first kind of reviews by way of Rotten Tomatoes because we're too lazy to actually read individual reviews. We just read blurbs because we have short attention spans and there's a gas leak in our house.
Yeah.
But yeah, so far it's incredibly positive. There are only 15 reviews up so far, but it is sitting at a 100% fresh score on Rotten Tomatoes, which means that...
Keep in mind that's going to go down. Batman vs. Superman is at like a 30-something now. It's got 340 reviews. It's a little bit... You'll probably, if you're on any message boards or anything like that, or you're a big fan of these movies, or you're a DC Marvel like warrior fanboy guy, you're probably going to contend with a lot of people who are showing you the different Rotten Tomato scores. Obviously, the major difference is that Captain America's number hasn't dropped yet. It will, spoilers, but it hasn't yet. The first 15 people that have reviewed this movie actually really liked it. Even IGN gave it a 7.8, which is very good on our scale. This is going to be a hit. This is going to be a great movie. I think it's like, if you saw Batman vs. Superman in theaters, some of you liked it, most of you didn't. I think we need a good sort of cohesive ensemble movie to kind of wash the taste of our mouths.
Without further ado, let's take a look at some of the stuff people have to say about this apparently good movie. I don't know, we haven't seen it yet. So here we go. First of all, Empire Magazine says, matching its blockbuster scale and spectacle with the smarts of a great grown-up thriller, Captain America Civil War is Marvel Studios' finest film yet. That's a pretty bold claim.
That's saying a lot.
Yeah.
I think they've had like 14 movies in their cinematic universe now, so this being at the top is really good news.
Yeah, and this one touches on that. Civil War isn't great despite being the third Captain America and 13th overall Marvel movie. It's great because of those things. That's from Birth Movies Death. That's a really interesting point, that like they're managing to keep this feeling fresh, like that they're using it as all the stuff that they've done so far is building towards something as opposed to just being like, here's more of the punching. The most mature and substantive picture to have emerged from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Wowzers. That's from Variety. That's a grown-up movie about tights people.
And that's interesting, right? Because I think a lot of the insults that got lobbied around towards Marvel films when Batman vs. Superman was first getting reviewed, not to keep bringing that into it, was that Marvel movies are funny, goofy, cartoonish, but it seems like there's a way to handle more adult, more serious themes without them being sort of diluted in some of the issues that DC's facing right now.
Sure. So next you've got the best Marvel movies so far. This is not hyperbole. I have my doubts they can make anything better. That's from Uprocks. Wow, that's so
good and bad news, because that means they've peaked.
I think I've been saying that about pretty much every movie they've done so far. I think they have almost consistently improved. There've been a few dips here and there, but I mean, I thought that Winter Soldier and Guardians are, I think, two of the best so far.
Yeah.
I thought Avengers 2, and I've said this a lot, but a lot of people don't like Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
I feel like Avengers 2 is like a larger scale Iron Man 2 in that it doesn't really, like, it exists as kind of a placeholder to introduce some characters. Like, it's very much like a transitional piece.
Yes.
Like, they used, like, Ultron was a throwaway character, but because he was in there, it was an excuse to bring in the Vision and basically, like, throw in a bunch of new team members. So it's not so much like you're not supposed to care about the villain. Like the end villain is going to be Thanos. Like we're going to care about that, but like in the same way that Whiplash was kind of like whatever, you just got Mickey Rourke being like, "Where is my board?"
You and I debated that a lot.
You know, Black Widow, and they introduced like Shield and all that.
But when Age of Ultron came out, you and I debated that a lot. Of like, sort of like, is it okay for a comic book movie to be just like a comic book in that it's just an issue and it's setting up something later on? Like, I think that works better for TV. I think it works great for comics. I think it works way less for movies, that we get one every few years. Like, I appreciate a lot of the setup they did, and that was kind of my problem with Batman vs. Superman. It felt like a huge setup for what's to come. And I think what's to come is going to get better and better, but I think it's like, that's why I'm hoping Civil War is sort of something that can stand on its own.
Well, let's take a look at a couple more things here. Finally, a big-budget superhero sequel that manages to be both effortlessly entertaining and utterly sobering instead of just one of those things, or, as we've endured too frequently in the past, neither of them. Looking at you, Batman v Superman, that's from the Daily Beast. Yeah, I mean, finding a balance between, like, levity and heavy-hitting action stuff, that's tricky.
Ultron had that one scene, and you know, when they're all at the house party, they're trying to lift the hammer, but other than that, it was, like, pretty serious throughout. So.
Yeah, I always love when people go see a movie and they're like, that part was stupid. I'm like, what about the part where they're superheroes?
Yeah.
Anyway, this one, just to be fair, I would say we gave it one of the most critical reviews. So if you're saying that we're biased, Jim Bavoda, who's on our entertainment team, said, featuring what's arguably the best ever screen depiction of Spider-Man, really excited about that, as well as a cool new hero in Black Panther, Captain America Civil War can't quite recapture the emotional and cerebral strengths of its predecessor. So, you know, there's a positive, but also a bit of a negative.
Also, like, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because if you think about, like, Winter Soldier is by far one of their best films. So if it hovers a little underneath that, that's still really, really awesome.
Yeah.
So
that's good news. Another big Marvel Cinematic Movie cinema universe news we got this week was we got the trailer for Doctor Strange, which I don't like. I'm not a Doctor Strange guy so much. I mean, I've read a handful of comics that he's been in. I just kind of like when Marvel gets that kind of like metaphysical and out there, I typically don't care.
Well, that's the weird thing, is that a lot of their character stories so far have been like kind of grounded in reality. I know you have Scarlet Witch, who's like one of the first characters to like truly bring in magical powers.
Well, you've got kind of these three different areas of Marvel. You've got Earth, you've got the grounded stuff, you've got a lot of it centered around New York City, and then you have like the outer space stuff where you get like, you know, the X-Men go there, Fantastic Four go there, you got Silver Surfer, you've got stuff where Thor goes out there, Thanos, all that kind of like intergalactic, like it's the universe part.
Yeah.
And then you've got the stuff where it's like other dimensions and like I guess you could kind of put the more magical stuff. You've got sci-fi, you've got fantasy, and you've got kind of this combination on Earth. And like I feel like that's where Thor goes a lot of the time. You know, like all the Asgard stuff is that doesn't feel like sci-fi. That feels like fantasy. That feels like and it's a hard bridge to gap there. And I think that Doctor Strange, like
it's definitely veering more towards sci-fi.
My biggest hope is that this is the same thing that happened with Ant-Man. In that, like, the trailers for Ant-Man sucked. They were totally boring. They didn't show off any of the strong suits of that movie, but you know, it did okay. And I think they kind of like they understood this was coming out like hot on the tails of Avengers 2, and it was like, this is a smaller, like literally smaller movie.
Yeah.
But I think they're good about not putting the best parts in the trailer and kind of just betting on the fact that people are going to go see a Marvel movie.
Well, it's a good bet, right? I mean, they're going to make a lot of money no matter what. And I think the understanding with this film is that like it sort of has one of the most like kind of promising cast that we've seen so far.
Oh, God,
like I mean, it's pretty easy to get a bunch of kind of like big name action guys and roll them all together in a big film and have them play different characters. But like this is a risk. Like to get Benedict Cumberbatch and Tilda Swinton to come in and play like way more sort of serious, sophisticated, cerebral characters in a story that's not necessarily very well known. I think had you taken the Marvel logo off of that film and just showed us that trailer, I would have been like, this is a weird movie for them.
That would have looked like a movie that comes out in February that nobody sees.
Right. You put the Marvel logo on there, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, so this is part of a bigger story here. This is something cool. This is obviously, these guys wouldn't sign up for something like this. Like, there was a story that went around the other day, an infographic that was basically some of the highest rated films of all time and the highest rated actors in those films versus the opposite.
Right.
Guys like Adam Sandler, Rob Schneider are at the bottom tier of that. They've done some of the worst movies of all time. Benedict Cumberbatch, like, gets good scripts. He picks good scripts, he does good films. Tilda Swinton, the same thing. She's not out doing like Shrek 5 and Avatar 6 or whatever, but she's gonna do a good movie. So I think that just by the nature of that, it's gonna be strong. What kind of became problematic for Ant-Man was all the director switches, creative decisions, rewrites. Like that's why the trailer and even the film itself were sort of tonally all over the place.
That one was in the works before Marvel Cinematic Universe had kind of taken its full form. So I mean,
and it did have that very shoehorned sort of like, here's an Avenger scene in that movie to kind of like.
But I love that because that was a total surprise. I didn't know that would happen in the movie, and I think that Marvel and Disney are really good at being like, we're not going to show you everything. Like we saw Spider-Man for a split second, and we've got Jim saying it's like the best depiction of Spider-Man we've seen. So that maybe means there's a bunch of Spider-Man in Civil War, and we haven't seen it because they're marketing it well.
Side note: is it Spider-Man or Spider-Mans? Let us know. Use the hashtag #UpAtNoon.